Hello everyone, and welcome to Hidden Korea. Tonight, we bring you a story that has sent shockwaves across Asia, a revelation so unexpected, so heartbreaking, that fans are still struggling to accept it. Prepare yourselves, because we are about to uncover every twist behind Hyun and son Ye-jin's marriage crumbles, the sudden split that stuns all Asia. Stay with us, the truth begins right now. For years, Hyun and son Ye-jin were seen as the unbreakable couple of Asia, the kind of love story people swore only existed in dramas. From their on-screen chemistry to their breathtaking wedding, every moment felt like a modern fairy tale written in gold. But behind the dazzling lights, the award ceremonies, the stolen glances, and the soft smiles caught by cameras, something had begun to crack, something invisible, fragile, and far more devastating than anyone could imagine. When the truth finally surfaced, it hit with the force of a tidal wave, leaving millions in stunned disbelief. It started quietly, like an unspoken breeze brushing through a house that once felt warm. Staff members on set first noticed subtle changes: a missing wedding ring during rehearsals, a text message ignored a second too long, a smile held together by effort instead of love. They brushed it off at first. Every couple, even the most adored, goes through waves. But this wave was different. It carried tension, silence, and a distance so sharp it felt like cold air cutting through their once perfect world. But the real turning point happened months earlier, long before the public even sensed something was wrong. Late one evening, after a long day of filming separate projects, Hyun returned home to find Ye-jin sitting alone in the dim light of their living room. Her hands clutched a document, her eyes red with exhaustion, but not from lack of sleep. It was fear, hurt, confusion. When he approached her, she didn't speak. She simply handed him the paper. It was a report from an agency consultant, a confidential analysis of their marriage's public stability. Something neither of them had requested. Something neither should have received. It outlined pressures they didn't know were being tracked, work schedules that barely overlapped, stress piling behind closed doors, a growing fear that marriage had become a burden instead of a refuge. The document labeled their relationship as at risk. Ben felt something inside him collapse. But it didn't end there. Days later, dispatch companies began circling them more aggressively. Journalists hinted at inconsistencies in their schedules. A rumor, baseless at first, suggested they had been living separately for weeks. Both denied it. Both insisted things were fine. Even their closest friends felt a chill between them. The couple that once finished each other's sentences had begun speaking like strangers, trying to remember a forgotten language. Then came the argument. Not the type filled with shouting, theirs was much worse. It was the kind of argument where silence strikes harder than anger. It happened in the kitchen, long after midnight, when exhaustion makes truth slip out too easily. Hyun confessed he felt the pressure of being half of Asia's perfect couple. Ye-jin confessed she felt increasingly alone, like she was holding up a world the two of them were meant to carry together. Neither wanted to hurt the other. But wounds form fastest when both are already tired. Their schedules only magnified the cracks. Hyun took on a demanding international project, while Ye-jin focused on rebuilding her career after motherhood. Days apart turned into weeks, then months. Calls became shorter. Messages became fewer. Even their rare dinners felt like two people trying to smile for a camera that wasn't there. And then came the night everything truly fell apart. Leaked photo. A misinterpreted gesture. An old friend whispering the wrong thing. Something snapped, not between them, but around them. Their agencies panicked. Industry insiders speculated. Rumors swirled like wildfire across social media. And suddenly, the couple found themselves trapped under the weight of a narrative they couldn't control. By the time dawn rose, names were splashed across every headline. Trouble in paradise, the articles claimed. Distance and pressure, the whispers hissed. For the first time, the love story that once inspired millions now felt like a cage tightening around them. Inside their home, silence deepened. One morning, Ye-jin left early for a schedule and didn't return until long after midnight. The next day, Hyun quietly moved some of his belongings to another residence, telling his manager he needed space. What had started as a small fracture had turned into a chasm with no bridge left in sight. And then, just when fans believed the rumors would fade, just when the world thought things were stabilizing, the announcement hit, sudden, brutal, and impossible to comprehend. Hyun Bin and son Ye-jin were preparing for divorce. Asia stopped breathing. Panic spread faster than any wildfire, burning through social media platforms in minutes. Fans cried, argued, demanded answers. News anchors spoke with trembling voices, unable to hide their disbelief. How could a love that looked so perfect, so cinematic, collapse in an instant? But behind the shock lay a deeper, far more painful truth. The marriage had been unraveling quietly for months, thread by fragile thread. The world clamored for explanations. Hyun Bin remained silent. His agency released only a short statement, confirming the separation but asking for privacy. Silence made everything worse. Silence breeds imagination. Imagination breeds chaos. And chaos spread like a tidal wave across Asia. Writers began leaking whispers, each more devastating than the last. Some said they fought over career sacrifices. Some claimed their personalities clashed behind closed doors. Some believed outside interference pushed them apart. The truth, as painful as it was, came from someone close to both of them, a quiet family acquaintance who had seen the couple's struggle up close. According to this source, the pressure of maintaining the perfect marriage image became too much. Each tried to protect the other, but in doing so, slowly drifted apart. They stopped being partners and instead became symbols the world demanded them to be. The most heartbreaking moment came during their final private conversation. It happened in the same living room where Ye-jin had once held the report predicting their marriage's collapse. Only this time, there were no documents, cameras, no agencies. Just two people sitting opposite each other, hands clasped tightly, trying not to break. Jin, tears slipping silently down her cheeks, whispered, "I don't want us to end, but I don't know how to save us anymore." Hyun Bin, voice cracking, replied, "Maybe loving each other means knowing when to let go." Cried together, not out of anger or betrayal, but out of the deep sadness that comes from acknowledging that even the strongest love can fracture under relentless pressure. After that night, they made a decision together. They would separate not as enemies, not as broken lovers, but as two people who once shared something extraordinary. They agreed to release the news quietly, gently, respectfully. But nothing about their announcement remained quiet, because the world refused to let it be. When the official statement finally went public, the effect was immediate and catastrophic. Fans fainted at fan meetings. Couples cried in restaurants. Entire online communities collapsed into disbelief. Television stations ran special programs. Newspapers printed full-page spreads. Their love story had been more than just romance, it had been hope, beauty, a symbol of destiny. And now, destiny had written a different ending. But even as the world fell apart emotionally, something unexpected happened behind the scenes. Ye-jin sent Hyun Bin a message. "Thank you for everything. For loving me. For trying." He replied hours later. "You didn't lose me. We completed what fate asked of us." Those words, private, tender, marked the true end of their story. Days passed, the shock settled into grief, into acceptance, and slowly, into respect. The marriage had ended. Neither tarnished the other. Neither spoke in bitterness. Neither allowed their love story to be rewritten as tragedy. Instead, they accepted it as something beautiful that simply lived its full life. In the end, the world realized something profound. The most stunning part of their story wasn't the divorce. It was the love they showed even at the very end. Their fairy tale had ended, not with betrayal, not with scandal, but with two people choosing peace over pain. That, more than anything else, is what shook all Asia. In the days that followed the official announcement, the world felt strangely hollow. An entire continent had lost something precious without knowing how to grieve for it. Streets were quieter. Online communities trembled with disbelief. Even entertainment programs spoke in hushed tones, as though raising their voice would somehow deepen the wound. The perfect fairy tale had ended, and what lingered afterward was a silence filled with questions that would never be answered. But behind that global silence, Bin and son Ye-jin faced their own aftershocks, subtle, complicated, and impossible to hide from. Bin was the first to step back into public life. He appeared at the airport for an overseas schedule. He erupted like lightning across the terminal. He yelled his name as if calling out to a man who was no longer there. His eyes, usually sharp and calm, carried a heaviness that made even the loudest voices falter. Deeply, not once, but twice, a gesture that spoke more than any speech could. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. On the other side of the city, Jin faced her own battle. Paparazzi parked outside her neighborhood. Fans gathered with banners of encouragement, holding back tears. When she finally appeared, wearing a simple coat and sunglasses, looked fragile yet unbroken, a woman choosing dignity even while her world had shifted beneath her feet. She greeted the crowd softly, thanking them for their love. Her smile trembled, but it existed. And that alone made countless fans cry. But the true storm brewed not outside, but within. Late at night, both found themselves revisiting places they once shared. The restaurant where they had their secret early dates. The cafe where Ye-jin once laughed so hard she cried. The park where Hyun had shyly reached for her hand for the first time. These places felt haunted now, filled with memories that were too beautiful and too painful to erase. Their families grieved too. Not for scandal or shame, but for a love they had witnessed up close, a love built on tenderness, respect, and devotion. Even those closest to them admitted privately that the announcement felt surreal, as though waking from a dream no one wanted to end. Time, as always, moved forward. Work returned. Schedules filled. Scripts piled up. Both actors tried to bury themselves in professionalism. But even the cameras felt the shift. Directors noted a new depth in Hyunbin's expressions, a quiet ache beneath his eyes. Ye-jin showed a newfound fierceness in her performances, channeling her pain into something luminous. But the world wasn't done watching them. Weeks after the split, a leaked photo emerged, not of scandal, not of confrontation, but something unexpectedly gentle. It showed Hyun standing alone outside a studio. A bouquet of white flowers. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't posing. He was simply staring at the flowers with an expression that spoke of remembrance. The kind of look worn by someone honoring something that once mattered deeply. Hours later, another report surfaced. Ye-jin had visited the very same studio earlier that day. Maybe. Destiny refusing to let go? Some believed so. Neither commented, leaving the world suspended between hope and heartbreak. The weeks turned into months. Something shifted. Shock softened into melancholy. The melancholy into acceptance. An acceptance into something surprisingly gentle, a respect for the way they had chosen to protect each other even as they parted. Then came the interview, the one the entire continent stayed awake to watch. Sitting under soft lights, Ye-jin spoke with a calmness that stunned everyone. When the interviewer gently asked if she regretted anything, she shook her head, eyes glistening. "I don't regret loving him," she said quietly. "Stories are beautiful even if they don't last forever." The nation held its breath. Days later, Hyun made his own appearance on a separate program. When asked if he still wished Ye-jin happiness, answered without hesitation, "She deserves a peaceful life. She finds it, even if I'm not part of it anymore." It was the closest thing to closure the world would ever get. And yet, something else happened, unexpected, emotional, and powerful. Fans began visiting the places tied to their love story, leaving handwritten notes taped to benches, walls, and lampposts. Notes filled with gratitude, memories, and sadness. People wrote messages like, "You taught us love can be real. Even endings can be beautiful. We will never forget your story." The grief transformed into something softer, a tribute to the love they had shared and the grace with which they let it go. And the world realized that their story had not crumbled, it had simply changed shape. What once was a fairy tale became a lesson. What once was a perfect romance became an honest, human journey. Their union may have ended, but the respect, tenderness, and sincerity they left behind would echo for years. Hyun walked forward. Son Ye-jin walked forward. Though heartbroken, walked forward with him. Their love story didn't end tragically. It ended truthfully. And sometimes, that is the most powerful ending of all. And, when the world finally took a breath and the storm surrounding Hyun and son Ye-jin began to fade, one truth remained unchanged: even the most beautiful love stories can find their final chapter not in anger, grace. Their journey, filled with tender moments, courage, and quiet strength, touched millions across Asia, and their farewell reminded us that love does not fail simply because it ends. Sometimes, it transforms. behind memories that continue to shine long after the curtain falls. Thank you for staying with us through every twist, every revelation, and every emotion woven into this story. Your support, your curiosity, and your presence give meaning to every story we bring to life. Thank you for watching Hidden Korea. Stay tuned for more untold stories, more truth, more unforgettable moments. Until next time, stay safe, stay inspired, and keep your heart open to every chapter life brings.